Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for Managing the Complexity of Retail Media Networks. I'm Max Willens. I am a senior analyst at Insider Intelligence, and I am joined today by an all-star panel of experts. We have Amy Lanzi, the Chief Operating Officer of Publicis Commerce. We have Julie Liu, the Director of E-commerce at Ghirardelli Chocolate Company, and we have Daniel Kniznik, the CEO of Quartile. Thank you all for being here. I'd also like to specifically thank Quartile for making this panel possible. And before we begin, I'd like all of you in attendance to let us know where you guys are tuning in from. You can do that by using the chat window on your right. And most importantly, use that chat box to ask us questions. We've allotted some time for questions, and we're eager to field them later. But with that, let's get started. So we've only got a few minutes and a lot to get to. I feel like you could spend an entire afternoon talking about the complexity in RMNs, but I am going to allow for one kind of around the horn question, and that is the issue of what do you see as being the biggest headache that you face when it comes to retail media networks? I'll start maybe with you, Amy. What do you see as being the biggest headache that you face in this space at the moment?
Hi, thanks for having me today. We could talk all day about this. In terms of headaches, I would say our biggest pain point is really keeping up with all the transformation of the retail media networks and making sure that our teams are trained so that the minute they're turning on something new, we're ready to be winning and driving the digital shelf for all of our brands that we represent. And there's so much transformation in the space and new features that are coming from each of the different partners depending on the maturity level. So that is a real area of opportunity for us that we're really trying not to make a headache, but to be focused on and staying ahead of, so that all of our teams are ready to go at the pace of the retail media network transformations.
There's a lot of opportunity if you can keep up. Julie, what about you?
Yes. Hi, Max. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us today. For me, on the brand side, I would say the biggest headache for me personally is measurement. So how do we make sure that we are, one, measuring the right things, and two, that we have a good understanding of what that omni-channel impact is of all of our retail media investments?
Makes a lot of sense. And Daniel, what about you?
Hey, everyone, and thanks for having us. I think that I would say that it's a little bit more basic, but what we feel is like our average client, and we have like around 5,000 brands connected to the platform at this point. They usually have like 3,000 to 4,000 SKUs. They advertise and sell in 4 or 5 different channels, and usually in 3 or 4 different countries. So you have a 50, 60,000 combinations between a channel, a SKU, and a country. So just understanding which ones really have inventory in each of those channels in each of those countries, and making sure that you should activate them and spend any budget on those is probably the largest or biggest pain point we see around.
That makes a lot of sense. So I'm glad that we gave all three of you space to do this, because I think that this underlines and illustrates just how rapidly this space is evolving and how much difficulty potentially it puts in front of the different stakeholders and possible investors in the ecosystem. And I want to kind of dig into your answers individually with you and with other people on the panel. So let's just start with the ecosystem diversity piece of this. I mean, there was some really interesting data out from the ANA that came out at the beginning of the year that showed that the typical brand is using 5 or more RMNs and is probably having to weigh lots more. I'm just curious, maybe we can start with you, Julie. What's a brand to do when it comes to sort of assessing where to be and where to put your money? Obviously, a lot of it has to do with kind of product market fit. I don't think you are thinking about putting, money into Best Buy's RMN, for example, but like, how do you kind of keep up and even weigh where to invest your money?
Yeah, so the first thing that I consider is I look where our shopper is. So which platform has the amount of traffic or impressions that generate us being there? And I think that's really important to look at first, because there are some cases where there might be a platform where there's low sponsorship or low organic activity on your specific category. So perhaps advertising isn't a lever that you need to pull there yet. Early days in the pandemic, I was definitely guilty of having FOMO, and I thought, oh, I'm not on this platform or I'm not on that platform. But now that we're 3 years in and we have a good handle of where performance is, it's definitely become for me more of a, what are the top 3 or 4 platforms that I really want to go big on, and make sure that I'm focused there and getting the KPIs right before I think about expanding to any secondary platforms outside of my top customers.
That makes a lot of sense. And Amy, I mean, you mentioned this as your kind of key headache. I mean, talk to me a little bit about what you guys have done to kind of ease those learning curves and make sure that the soldiers can kind of hit the ground running once you decide to sort of invest or turn a platform into a capability.
We've done a couple of different things. I mean, we have ongoing training boot camps so that as retailers are opening up new opportunities, especially up the funnel, which I think starts to transform how we think about retail media in terms of, is it just about the brilliant basics and a performance opportunity, or is it really about brand building? So in order to be able to keep up with pace and all the different opportunities, we have a partner that helps us with training, and we also are very much focused on badging all of our commerce practitioners to be staying with what's happening with these partners. And we have great partnerships with these retailers. The other thing that we've done is we've brought in intelligence so that we can get smarter to guide, the right investment decisions, similarly to how Julie just talked about this in terms of where are the places we should be playing. This is why we acquired Profitero. So we're able to use the data to tell us what to do versus what we might emotionally feel, and then be able to action on that in real time. Also, Citrus Ad is part of our network as well. Same thing. This gives us intelligence on the long tail of the grocery network in particular. That also gives us this view. So it tells us a couple of things. Where should of course our clients should be investing? What should we be doing in real time to keep up with all the places consumers are shopping, or we think they're shopping? And then where are we seeing the most demand across, so that we're making sure that all of our teams are up to date on all of those insights. So that's how we view it. In order to sort of take the humans out of it a little bit, you obviously need intelligence to be guiding you in that.
Makes a lot of sense. We're going to drill down a little bit further on the extent to which you want to take humans out of it. But I want to quickly remind folks in attendance that if you have questions, you can dump them in the chat. We've budgeted some time at the end, so it can be about what we've talked about already, or anything else that comes to mind when you think about the brain power on the panel. I want to talk a little bit more about something that came up in both of your answers there, which is sort of assessing how to evaluate results here. I mean, on one hand, if you're looking at it purely through the lens of performance, that makes things potentially a little bit easier. As you kind of go further up the funnel, it gets a little harder. Julie, since you flagged this as kind of your chief challenge, how do you deal with the self-reported results from networks? How do you kind of tease out what's real and what's not? How big a grain of salt you should take things with? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so we are working with a couple of partners right now who are looking into how we can better improve the reporting of the campaigns. Specifically, if you think about a category like confections or chocolate, a majority of the sales happen in store. It's a very impulsive category. Probably people aren't doing a lot of research online before they buy it. And so one, it's how do we think about the e-commerce activity, and less about e-commerce as a channel, but more as a tool to enable commerce anywhere. And then two, if we know that a majority of the sales are not in fact happening online, how do we calculate the value of the digital marketing activity that we're running, and understand what that impact is to the entire customer journey? So that's the biggest challenge for me when I talk about measurement.
And do you feel like you're kind of progressing well in building that picture and understanding that journey, or is it sort of a work in progress?
It's still a work in progress, but I'd say we, as well as our partners and retailers, have made a lot of progress, even over the past 6 months to a year. So if you think now, there are some platforms that are running search that are starting to provide in-store metrics. And then with the display banners piece, you'll typically always get some sort of in-store halo report. But just understanding, how much of that you want to take with a grain of salt, and how much you think is actual activity that is spurred by the digital marketing activity.
Daniel, I mean, I want to bring you in on this. I mean, like, you're one of your kind of chief, one of the things that you probably help customers think about is, weighing and assessing performance across networks. How do you guys think about this picture that we have that can be made up of lots of different sources of truth and definitions and a lack of consistency?
Now you have those big platforms launching their data clean rooms as well, right? Which is a big trend. Amazon is doubling down on Amazon Marketing Cloud exactly to be able to measure halo effects and in-store activity. At the end of the day, I feel that, like, first of all, you want to make sure that you can aggregate the data, right? So you're talking about, like, the vast majority of retail media ad spend is through walled gardens. So making sure that you understand that at least you're being able to report in each channel, and then, like, how do you aggregate that? How can you see lifts from specific campaigns across all the channels, right? At the end of the day, you have one case that we always talk about is that sometimes clients, they start advertising to send traffic to their website, and that end up also lifting sales on specific marketplaces that people are more comfortable in making a first purchase to a specific brand. But then once they buy and they like the product, the second purchase happens on the website, because then they want to have access to the full catalog. They want the look and feel of the brand. They want to see what else is out there from that brand's catalog. So lots of things happening from data clean rooms, lots of things happening in terms of aggregating data for each of those walled gardens, and so much cross-channel activity or lift being seen around.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I mean, the clean room, if you've got the comfort with that technology, can help you build that more holistic picture.
Exactly.
Amy, talk to me a little bit too, because you guys spend a lot of time, not just, I'm sure, managing performance budgets, but really trying to, as you say, kind of like make commerce part of an end-to-end and sort of multi-channel 360-degree effort. So, like, how do you sort of navigate the complexity that we've been discussing when it comes to managing different definitions and a lack of standardization there?
Yeah. I think first starts with the fundamentals of the partnerships we have with the retail media network partners. One of the key components of our JBP approach is measurement, and how we are building and pushing them on either co-created ways to measure or access to products that help us make it not so hard for someone like Julie, because it really is a lot of hatching together. If you listen to everyone talking, it's a lot of different sort of disparate pieces. So we work with, that's job one, so that we're pushing them, so they're helping us make us not feel like they're sort of grading their own homework. So that's part one. I think, and the second is using different technology to be able to do that. So we also have many engagements where we're leveraging clean room, whether it's our own clean room through Epsilon, or it's something that's already wedded to that retail partner. They already have their chosen one. So we're able to figure out, would this sale have happened anyway if we didn't do this media? Is it new to brand? And I think new to brand is a big one. And then is this an incremental sale? And then, of course, when you think about the actual business, we're trying to drive products to be sold wherever consumers want them to buy them. It varies by category. So as Julie articulated, confectionery is all high impulse. So the way you would think about the role of digital commerce is different than how you might think about the opportunity to get someone to actually add something in their basket through through an Instacart purchase, for example. And so what is the right mix? How are you stimulating demand? How are you taking advantage of different platforms to stimulate that demand? That might be very different in terms of how you might think about maximizing the opportunity within the Walmart ecosystem. And so, those are the ways. So it's first is like getting the brilliant basics right in terms of using BI or whatever to ingest all the different things that you can gather, because there's a lot of insights to have, but then also laying down like the strategic imperative that's about driving the business, because the goal for this is just to drive the one more purchase wherever it's going to happen. And that shouldn't be lost, because it's different than other types of media. And I think that's an interesting nuance in the retail media space in particular.
I think that's really smart. So I want to return, as I mentioned before, to the idea of kind of automation and its role in this. The snapshot that Daniel gave of the typical profile of one of the brands on Quartile, I think is really instructive, where if you're a large retailer with a lot of SKUs and you're on 3, 4, 5, 6 different networks, all of a sudden you're dealing with a pretty woolly set of things to consider, and it's hard to do that at scale. I guess maybe let's just start with Daniel here. I mean, how do you sort of advise at a kind of best practice level when it comes to sort of managing all of this? Is the idea that you dip a toe in by just starting with a small amount of catalog and familiarizing yourself with how to sort of work across? Do you feel like there's kind of enough data out there that can be leveraged that you can kind of jump into the deep end of the pool right away? What are the kind of best practices when it comes to managing that complexity and that scale?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think that of course it depends on each brand's strategy and budget sizes, right? But in general, I would say that it's about filling the funnel bottom up, right? So if you have a very limited budget, you're just starting to test, you don't have to focus so much on display and open web and brand awareness. You might want to focus a little bit more on bottom of funnel, making sales. And then if your budget starts increasing, then you get to diminishing return point on the more lower funnel approach, and then you have to expand to top of funnel. Of course, a much bigger brand that has a much bigger budget can start trying to do everything. Another interesting concept is that a huge part of sales when it comes, especially to marketplaces, right? So retail media, probably like 75% of total ad spend on retail media is towards marketplaces. A huge part of sales should be driven not just by search or pure display, but specifically targeting other product pages, right? So sometimes someone searches for a high-end wine opener, they click on that product, and if I'm selling a high-end wine glass, making sure that I appear inside that product page could, and usually will, drive a big part of sales, maybe 55-60% of sales, and by far with the highest ROAS, right? So I'm not targeting a specific keyword, but I'm learning programmatically which other products to target, which other category of products to target, and so forth. But again, when you have thousands of products in a handful of marketplaces, you have to do that programmatically, and always remembering that it's a moving target, right? So your competitors, they change their prices, they go out of inventory, they have promotions, they win or lose bestseller badges. So being able to keep up with all that is almost impossible without technology. On the other hand, understanding specifically what type of product you're selling, understanding what type of strategy you should be trying to achieve is something that relies a lot on experienced professionals that understand exactly what they're doing and have been doing this for some time and know exactly how to achieve the results. So usually what we see is that the top of the game, the edge in terms of efficiency comes with an interesting blend of superior technology, robust reporting, and good experience, good expertise.
Makes a lot of sense. I guess we're about to get into audience questions here, and I guess I would just flag one last time that if you've got some, don't be shy. You can dump them in the chat. We've gotten some really good ones, but I'm willing to revise the list of who gets the airtime here if you've got something really good. So please, by all means, drop something in. This is a question that I thought was really interesting. I don't know who asked it, but the question is, what can retail media networks do to make lives easier for brands and partners in the ecosystem? Is it making data available to platforms, educating you on the advantages? What can the RMNs do to make your lives easier for brands or partners? And I'm actually curious to hear what all three of you say about this, because I imagine the answers will be slightly different. Julie, let's start with you. What can retail media networks do to make your lives easier?
Yes, the number one thing for me is to ensure that there's better integration with the traditional brick and mortar side of the business. So, for example, if we're working with a Walmart or a Target and we have a quite robust retail media plan, how can we ensure that our in-store buyers know what we're doing to drive their business overall? And a lot of the times right now, the brands still play that middleman role. And so I would love to have a more connected relationship across all the parties involved within the business.
It's interesting. Amy, what about you?
That's a big one. I think we agency people also tend to get stuck in well, this is what the in-store or shopper team said, and this is what we're doing over here on a retail media investment standpoint. And so how do we get those planning cycles together? Because it's one consumer we're trying to get to buy something. So that is definitely a big one. I would also say that it's access to the data. The more access to the data that you give to your agency partners, to your brand partners, the more we will really be able to figure out how we should be investing. There's plenty of dollars that will flow. And I firmly believe that transparency will make that much easier for us. And some, retailers are willing to do that, and some are not. Doing that will help alleviate some of the concerns that retail media sometimes is still considered a tax, somewhat because of what Julie articulated and sort of the two ways into different brand organizations. So only through data and performance will we be able to say, no, this is actually the way that we should be investing, and this is driving both sales and brand building for brands.
Daniel, what about you? What do you see?
Yeah, I agree with everything that was said here. I would add that having more granular data and closer to real time definitely makes it more efficient, right? I think that all these retail media networks are being built at the end of the day. Like, it's still fairly new. So we sometimes, like in big channels, big marketplaces, we still don't have zip code data in real time. We cannot make changes in bids dynamically for different zip codes. For example, if I'm selling an umbrella, this is obvious, but if I'm selling an umbrella and I know that in this specific zip code it is raining or it's going to rain tomorrow, I probably should have a lift on my conversion rate. So it would be okay to increase bids a little, but we don't have that type of data, especially closer to real time. So that this is something that, like, more robust API reporting with more granular data definitely would be top of list for Quartile.
It's very good. This question was for Daniel, but I'm interested to hear what all of you have to say about it. How do you think about leveraging the learnings from one channel to another to avoid operating in silos? Can you take the learnings that you get out of, a Walmart and apply it in a Roundel? Like, what? I guess we'll start with Daniel, since the question was posed to you specifically. Sure. Like, how do you think advertisers can leverage learnings from one to the other?
That's a great one. That's a great one. Yeah. So like, this is for us, like, this is the holy grail, right? This is like, once you start really being able to use everything you learn on your Amazon campaigns and you can apply that to your Google or Instacart or Walmart campaigns, that makes the learning curves much steeper. You learn faster, you become more efficient in a much quicker pace. Yes, so like, I think that, like, from a category standpoint, as long as you can match and understand how each of these channels call a specific subcategory, and you can find them on the other channels, you can definitely apply a lot of interesting learnings from time of the day, where you have higher conversion rates, lower conversion rates, higher ROAS, lower ROAS, and so forth. There's still, like, you have to, ideally, brands would do a better job in general from a unifying and leveling their UPC codes in all these channels across these different SKUs, because lots of times they're selling different SKUs. It might be kind of the same product, but it's not the same SKU. And sometimes it's not even the same UPC. So the more they can give us a concise catalog in terms of this UPC that is being sold on Amazon is this same or this other UPC on Walmart, and here is how it's sold on my website, then yes, that would increase speed of learning a lot. We do a lot of cross learning. Again, subcategory, hourly changes, for example, seasonality and other stuff. But the more robust the cataloging is, the better we can and quicker we can find similarities across all these different UPCs and SKUs.
Interesting. Julie, I'd love to hear your perspective on this. I mean, how much success have you guys had in taking learnings from one RMN and porting them to the other? Like, do you find that there's upside there, or is there tell me more about your experience there.
Yeah, there definitely is upside. The watch out that I would say is if we think about how the shopper buys our products on different platforms. So, for example, maybe someone who's buying our product on Amazon has a different need state than someone who's buying our product on Walmart. So in those cases, sharing some of those learnings might not work because we know that, maybe someone's buying on Walmart because they want chocolate now, but for Amazon, they're looking for a gift for Christmas. And so I would say understanding the shopper and why they're on that specific platform is key. But then too, obviously, there will be specific learnings regarding search trends or what products work best. But I would just make sure that brands understand the role of each of their platforms and what the shopper journey is.
Amy, I'll give you the last word on this one.
Sure. It's an amalgamation of what was shared here. I would say first, I would be thinking about, Amazon is the most sophisticated retail media network. And so when you think about all the things that they have done, whether it's going up the funnel or offering Amazon Marketing Cloud, building out your Amazon data warehouse, these are all things that give you the opportunity to practice, because most likely some of the other media network partners are going to be adding these types of opportunities. So learn on Amazon or whatever is your most sophisticated one you're spending on, because you're going to build that muscle memory to then be able to, what I say is hack the thing to be able to get your brand to be sold. I think that's really important. And that teaches you how to figure out which of the levers that matter in terms of thinking about them as big, shopping ecosystems, understanding the balance of online and offline, in-store and online, if that's the case. So that's one thing, is like build your muscle memory there with the more sophisticated. Then I would say the second is exactly what Julie said, is how do you also get really smart about stimulating demand with some of the different retailers based on what consumers and how want to buy there and how they shop there. Someone like an Instacart is a fun place to play because it's a little more liberated. It's not a huge customer. And it allows you to think about new moments to stimulate demand for brands that may always be in the weekly shop. Now you can create this moment that suddenly makes it feel like I need to buy this now. And I think that's a really interesting way to use digital commerce to grow your brands, to grow the audience outside of some of the regular missions that are attached to whatever brand that you have. And this is liberating. Otherwise, back in the day, you would have to be really negotiating to get like a physical end cap in a store. So now you can do that in not only here, but in TikTok, in all these other places. That sets you up to have interesting data to take back to your retailers about what you've learned and where you think your right to win is in terms of growing the category in partnership with them, playing in spaces that may not even be attached to their ecosystem today.
I think that's a really great note to end on, just emphasizing the opportunity to sort of build shared success and trying to incent that. This has been great, all three of you. Amy, Julie, Daniel, thank you very much for the time. Thank you for the questions, everybody that asked them. We really appreciate those. Don't touch that dial, though. Next, we have a very special Ask the Analyst panel. It features Jasmine Enberg and Ethan Kramer-Flood and Susie David Canyon. Click on the tab below the video that says next session. And thank you guys very much for joining us.